Good morning or good afternoon, Junior STEM. Thank you very much for watching this video. This video in particular will be looking at the basics of 3D modeling in TinkerCAD. Our learning intention for this one is to introduce the fundamental concepts and tools of TinkerCAD to beginners. If you are familiar with TinkerCAD software already, awesome, in which case then there will be some concepts that we're going to cover that you're already familiar with and probably some that you aren't as familiar with. But of course, if this is brand new for you, awesome, let's get going. A quick review of what TinkerCAD is. It is a form of CAD software. So that is CAD software, which basically means that it's a type of software that allows us to create things in 3D. So imagine if you picked up a pencil and started drawing in 2D. Well, this one allows you to draw in 3D, and it also means that we're able to follow through with other processes, things such as 3D printing, milling, laser engraving, etc., etc. And so for us in STEM education, 3D printing is pretty important. It really allows us to be able to create things that we're thinking about. But of course, before we can get there, the 3D modeling aspect is important as well. So when we're 3D modeling, we're considering lots of different factors, things like dimensions and the tolerances, which I'll get through to in a little bit later. But basically, the core idea is that we're designing something in 3 dimensions with considerations for its purpose as well. Let's start by looking at some of the basic tools and features. So let's look at the work plane. What you see right in front of you, this blue grid right here, that blue square, is our work plane. Everything we put on there is relative to that plane there. Basic navigation, so if you've got a mouse, just holding right click allows you to tilt or turn like this. The same thing can be achieved by just dragging this here, no matter where you click. Okay, if you're on the mouse pad, again, I would suggest using this one here. Otherwise, you can hold your right side of your mouse pad to move and tilt it. If you'd like to actually pan and move the actual camera, if you hold shift and do the same thing, it will allow you to move that. So just to quickly recap that, that's right click, hold and move for turning, shift, right click and move for panning along the actual screen. And zooming in, zooming out works the same way as you would with a normal screen. So 2 fingers to zoom in, zoom out, or with the scroll wheel works as well. On the right hand side, you'll see some basic shapes. Now that we know how to move around the screen, we're going to use some basic shapes. You'll see here some 2 grayed out shapes. There's a cube over here on cylinder. Just going to ignore those for a moment. I'm going to focus on this one here. You can either drag or click and drop, up to you, whichever one works for you. You can drag and click and drop here, and it'll automatically show you a bunch of these dimensions. If you scroll down here, there's a lot of different shapes here. Some of them will be more relevant to you than others, but let's focus on the cube for now. What looks like a cube now, of course, can be any shape that you can imagine. So things, for example, such as rectangular prisms, we can grab the dots, those square dots you see, those white dots, which allow us to change the dimensions of our cube. So you might, for example, want to make one a long wall like this. You might want to make a taller block like this. You may want to, for example, if you grab this black square dot here, it'll allow you to change 1 dimension on our cube there. Alternatively, you can change the values here for our width, length, and height, but that's up to you how you do it. And of course, this applies to all our different shapes. Things, for example, such as our cylinder, it'll have very similar options for a cylinder. You can change these options here, or these dimensions there. And keep in mind that these are all in millimeters. So for example, if you need your cylinder to have a diameter of 40 millimeters or 4 centimeters, you would type in 40 here and hit enter. And that's how you get very accurate dimensions. But you'll notice that our cylinder doesn't really look like a cylinder if you look up close. And that's because we've got all these edges here. What we can do in the settings, and there's a very unique skill there, is to increase the number of sides, and hopefully, as I increase the number of sides, you can see what happens to the actual number of edges. As I increase the number of sides, it becomes closer and closer to like a circle as opposed to a polygon. Okay, so when you have some chance, please feel free to play around with those different shapes. There's a lot of different shapes there. If you don't want a shape, just click it and then backspace or delete it will get rid of it. There are some unique options here as well. For example, this squiggly line here allows you to draw a shape of your own choosing. You might try to draw, I'm not quite sure what that is, but you might try to draw that. And if you hit done, it'll pop out as a shape that looks like you're drawing. We don't typically use this one as much, but it's always an option that you can choose as well. Alright, so I'm going to build something very basic. Let's say I'm trying to build a house. I'm going to go ahead and put down a house here. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to grab a triangular shape here. And I'm going to use something called the alignment tool. So if I select, basically what I want to do is I want to put this up here, but you'll notice that as I drag it, it's actually going up the back. That's not what I want. So I'm going to select both of these by going Control A, or you can just left click and drag across. So Control A or left click drag across. And you'll notice that there are a couple of options at the top here that will come up as available. You're going to click the one that looks like two boxes against a line that says Align. You click that, and it will give you these options here. Now select the object you want to be the base or the main focus, and I'm going to select the cube in this particular case. Those dots represent where I want things to line up. So for example, if I want my objects to line up on here or here, whatever it is, I'm going to click these two dots here. So I'm going to get it to line up against this, and then I get it to line up against this. You'll notice that it's popped up to the front here. I want to pull it up to the top there, so I'm going to do that. It's not really looking like a house, so I need to make sure I get the right dimensions. It's 20. This one here is 46. So I'm going to make that to a 46. If I look to the side here, this is also 46. Of course, it's a cube. So I'm going to make the length of my triangular prism 46 as well. I know that the height, if I hover over this dot here, is 10. I'm going to drag it up by 10. Bam, there's my house. Not a very good one, but it is a house nonetheless. Now I'm going to put a window, and to do that, I'll need to be able to use this cube here, which is the hollowed out one. And you can choose this option, this hollowed out option, for all different types of shapes, as long as you click the hole option. Now the hole does exactly what you imagine it does, but it allows us to be able to put an object inside another object and cancel it out or subtract it, for those of you that might be quite familiar with CAD software. So if I'm trying to make a window, I might put that cube there. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, more accurate to window dimensions. There we go. And I'm going to put that inside. A quick tip, by the way, if you only want to move your object in one direction rather than two different directions like this, you can hold Shift and it will only go up, down, left, or right. Okay, so let's try and put this into our object. I'm just going to put it around there, and I'm going to select all again. Once I select all, I'll have the option to group everything together, which is very important. We'll group everything together, and then once we group everything together, we'll be able to have our final product. So to group, there's an option up here that says that has a square and a circle kind of combined together, or you can press Ctrl G, whichever one works for you. It'll take a second and it will load up our item here. You'll notice that the shape that we had put inside as a whole object, when we group it, cuts out that specific shape from the original design. Okay, now that we've done that, let's pretend that was a final design. And of course, I'll show you how to model a fan in the next video. But before we do that, let's say we want a final design. I'm going to go ahead and export it as an STL. And that's how I would save it if I wanted to go submit it as a 3D model for printing. If I wanted to just save this project in general to make sure I can work on it next lesson, there's nothing you need to do. You just close it and it will automatically save attached to your account. So you'll log back in, and you, of course, make sure you give it a name first so that you don't forget. I'm going to call this one Practice House, and that way the next document, next time I open up my login for TinkerCAD, it'll come up as Practice House, and I can continue to work on that. Hopefully that helps.